To be human is to make a difference. To be human is to take part. For whilst we may all be familiar with the old cliche, we're human beings, not human doings, our doing does affect the world around us. We do stuff. We make a difference. So with participation, our exploration of what it means to be human has come full circle.
Is that why I'm carrying around this lens?
Our significance and our purpose have been inextricably linked in our cultural stories today.
Was it my passion for justice and my love of arguing that made me a lawyer? Or was it the other way around?
Am I a comms person because I love stories, or do I love stories because I'm a comms person? Does being influence doing, or does doing influence being?
There's a reality in this tension. Does our humanity come from what we do, or are our actions a mere expression of our humanity? Does one person's life have more impact and meaning than another's? Does someone's life have more humanity if we think they have greater impact or meaning? And how do we even decide that?
Throughout this series, we have highlighted the power of stories, but also the weakness and dehumanizing impact of our cultural stories. The secular story pulls out some of the bottom blocks. Belief is up for grabs. Expressive individualism pulls out some of the middle blocks. It's all about me. And our postmodern culture pulls out some of the top blocks. It's about your truth. These three combine like a massive game of Jenga. We're left with a structure that is unstable and unable to support the weight at the top. It is a top-heavy pick and mix of the other stories. And you can feel the nerves. Is the tower about to topple? This is our world today.
Permacrisis was the word of the year in 2022. Living in a state of permanent crisis or instability. It seems to capture the cultural moment well as we lurch from one crisis to another, wondering what catastrophe is looming next. Political crisis, social unrest, economic crisis, banking collapse, environmental crisis, wars, cost of living crisis, personal crisis. All these crises are interconnected. Like how defaults in the US subprime housing market, a relatively small part of the financial system, spiraled into the global financial crisis of 2008. Or how the grounding of one single ship in the Suez Canal led to a crisis of global just-in-time supply chains. We find ourselves in chaotic, exhausting, permanent state of crisis. And it is relentless. I don't know about you, but it feels constant. It's not just all the changes, but the speed and rate of change. As millions of individual or micro stories compete, we find ourselves in a world of identity politics, intersectionality, and cancel culture. The more intersectional my identity, the better. Just cancel or no platform those you disagree with. We end up feeling overwhelmed. For many of us, it's too much. Navigating these shifting sands is exhausting. Some of us look to figures like author Jordan Peterson and his 12 Rules for Life to bring order to the chaos. Others turn to organiser Marie Kondo, who brings quiet order and calm to your home as a sanctuary from the chaos outside. Others are just simply burnt out and distract themselves binge-watching Netflix with a glass of red wine.
We have 1,440 minutes a day, or more than 31 million seconds every year to make a difference. But how do we decide what to do? The cultural stories offering us a full human life end up delivering chaos and exhaustion, with the unbearable responsibility to get it all right by myself. There's an awful meme out there. Adulthood is saying, but after this week, things will slow down a bit, over and over again until you die. But surely that can't be it.
The God story tells us that after the dark, watery chaos comes purpose, vitality, and dynamism. God brings an order to creation. Each day's activities is detailed in a few short verses, but the sixth day is much more expansive. Human beings are made in God's likeness to represent and represent Him into creation. In Genesis 1:26, God says, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." Genesis reminds us that God blessed the first humans and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." We are given purpose and power and incredible freedom as human beings. We are invited to play our part.
Having painted the big picture of creation in Genesis 1, the second chapter zooms in on human beings. God plants a garden in Eden. He brings His kingdom to earth and places the first human being in it, to till it and to keep it. The first Hebrew word comes from abad, meaning to work and to serve, and is often translated as cultivate. The second Hebrew word comes from shamar, meaning to preserve or keep watch. So the original human task is to cultivate and preserve creation, to partner with God to bless, steward, and to care for all of creation.
The rhythm of the creation story is as powerful as its events. As the days unfold, we are told, "And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." In God's story, our purpose is deeply connected to our state of rest. We work within a rhythm of replenishment. We don't work ourselves into the ground, crash out in exhaustion, stop just long enough for us to get the energy to lift our hands and go again. In God's garden, rest is built into the daily order. Rest and work are balanced, and it is good. And then, after the working week, God stopped. There was a rest, a pause, a selah. We, as His image bearers, are to work and then stop. God blessed the seventh day, but it doesn't close like the other days. The rest doesn't have a defined end. Doing is important, but rest is a deep underlying theme within the God story, because even when there is still more to be done, God stops. What we do is limited by a rhythm of rest, for in the God story, work knows its place.
Participating in God's kingdom, ruling and having dominion, all sounds great. But how does that work in our chaotic and contested world? The story of Daniel is a personal favourite of mine. Daniel and his mates are often remembered for their strong stand. Daniel 1 verse 8 says, "But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way." But Daniel did learn the language and the culture of the Babylonians. He took on a new name. Daniel meant God is my judge, and he was renamed after a Babylonian god. He served in the administration that had captured his own people, and he was a special advisor to an idolatrous king. Daniel's story is about participating and partnering with what God is doing, even when things are messy and complex. After sticking to their vegetables and water diet for 3 years, Daniel and his mates are found to be 10 times wiser than all the magicians and enchanters in the kingdom. This paved the way for significant influence. But that influence really makes a difference as Daniel combines his cultural expertise with his spiritual insight. Nebuchadnezzar the king has a dream and demands that his advisors tell him the dream and the interpretation. When no one can do it, Daniel and his friends seek God, who reveals the mystery to Daniel. Daniel can interpret the nightmares of his age by bringing a divine and supernatural solution to the table. Daniel lived in this world, but he did not live for it. His purpose and meaning were found within a larger story, and so he invested both in this world and in the world to come.
Jesus is constantly pointing us back to what life looks like in relationship and partnership with God. He demonstrates the original commissioning of Adam and Eve to bless, care, and steward. This is true in the work that Jesus does, like the work of Adam in the garden, but also in the rest and reliance on God, even when there's more to be done. In Jesus, we see what participation looks like when it is utterly reliant on the goodness of God. When Jesus and his friends went out on a boat one evening, Jesus was resting when a big storm hit them. Israelites weren't big fans of water. The waters remind us of the chaotic waters in Genesis 1 verse 1 and the disordered world. And it's this chaos that was about to destroy the Israelites in the boat. The water is filling the boat and the disciples are panicking. They wake Jesus. Don't you care we're going to drown? Do something. Where is your faith? He asked the disciples. The accusation wasn't about their faith in him. The accusation was about their faith in God. Jesus rested and relied on God even in the middle of raging storms. Jesus' rest was an act of surrender. All his power, all his authority, all of his purpose comes as a gift received from God. He didn't need to be concerned about his circumstance.
Jesus' participation is an invitation from God to join in. Not something to be grasped, but something to be stewarded. Rest reminds us of that. We pray your kingdom come, turning the world upside down, or more accurately, right side up. We offer our participation in answer to our own prayers. We proclaim the mighty acts of him who called us out of darkness and into his marvelous light. Filled with the Spirit, we carry God's presence as merchants of holy hope, kingdom carriers, trusted rulers, and cultural renewers. To be human is to participate. The difference we make in the world matters.
We live in a world of chaos and exhaustion. So many of us are caught up in the relentless pursuit to win at life or win at all costs. But so many of us don't know what the rules of this game are or how to make the game stop. So rest with us for a moment as we reflect on the words from the famous Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me.
We are made in the image of a generous and active God, a powerful and purpose-filled God who invites us to participate in the renewal of all things. To be human is to participate. The difference we make in the world matters.